Good to see you back for the second session of Eldon Gray's presentation on the history and evolution of baseball. Eldon Gray received a PhD in ecology and ornithology from Iowa State University. He was a member of the biology faculty at Hope College for a number of years, teaching various courses, including ecology and ornithology. He left the college in 1998 to launch Birders World, a magazine for bird watchers. Eldon has led birding trips to the Peruvian Amazon and takes Hope students and alumni on safaris to Kenya and Tanzania. His lifelong fascination with the game includes playing college baseball as well as organized town team baseball during and after college. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Eldon Gray. Eldon?
Hi, thanks, Kim. Thanks for coming back. Looking forward to talking about some more baseball. I want to look at these next few decades. We talked about the dead ball era, and things turned around rather quickly when we got into the first decade afterwards. Hitting started to increase rather quickly. I was going to show you my dad's glove, and I forgot to bring it. So I'm sorry, Dad. If you recall, the dead ball era had it was the kind of baseball that had a lot of speed and a lot of singles and a lot of stolen bases and a lot of bunts, very few home runs. The ball was kind of soft. The fences were so far away, up to 650 feet, that it didn't make sense to even try for them. So they dazzled the bases. And then coming into the 20s and towards 30, people realized, the players realized that this guy Ruth is a pretty big dude and he hits the ball pretty hard and he makes a lot of money doing that. So the interest switched rather quickly. Home runs up 46% from the couple of years before. That's pretty significant. Ruth had his best year, 54 home runs, 171 RBIs, and behind that sheet there, you'll see he hit something like 370. Just unbelievable. Rogers Hornsby, 424. And then Rawlings came out with a new glove. You've noticed that these gloves are pretty small. In fact, they would put them in their back pocket when they're running the bases. They were just kind of skimpy things. So the preformed pocket gave you something that you could almost catch a ball with one hand. You could lunge for it. And that really picked up the defense significantly. One of the highlights for me was in 26 World Series. Grover Cleveland Alexander was one of our great pitchers, won 373 games. And right near the end, he was traded to the Cardinals, and he thought people lost faith in him, and he was pretty upset. The Cardinals, Rogers Hornsby was a manager, and Branch Rickey was a general manager, and they both liked Alexander, and they got to the series, and Alexander won game 2 and he won game 6. And he had a health problem, unfortunately. He at that point was drinking quite a bit. And after game 6, he celebrated pretty late. And game 7, he's hanging on in the clubhouse, in the bullpen. And they decided to bring him in against Tony Lazzari in the 7th inning. Lazzari was a rookie. He was a power hitter, and I won't give you all the details, but how Hornsby came out to find out.
Keep talking. I mean, I need to do something real quickly.
Should I talk?
Yeah, you may. Sorry, folks. You know what? We're just making sure that his slides are advancing. So I'm resharing his screen.
So Hornsby asked him how he was going to pitch to Lazzarini. He told him, and Hornsby said that'll never work. And to make the story short, he threw 3 pitches: a high, tight fastball, then a fastball that was low inside, and then he threw a curveball over the outside of the plate and put him down on 3 pitches. And it was a wonderful thing for him to kind of like a comeback. I got to catch up. Hack Wilson was a big power hitter. He got his start in the 30s. He was influenced very much by Ruth. This is Shoeless Joe Jackson. Somebody asked Ty Cobb, who was the greatest hitter you ever saw? And he said, Shoeless Joe. His hitting 360 up to 400. Unfortunately, he could not read or write, and he got involved in the scandal, the White Sox scandal, the Black Sox scandal, 1919. It's not. He tried to get out of it, and I felt so bad for him. But at any rate, that's never played again. There's Hornsby, led the league in hitting 7 times. Great shortstop, and that's the way Ruth liked to be seen around town. He was a huge figure. Went with all of them. Then we go to the 30s, the Depression. Attendance and income are down.
We're gonna have to play it like that. So, everybody, I'm so sorry. This is just one of those things. We all know that Zoom is tricky. So for some reason, when I put it into the slideshow mode, you are unable to see the slides. So what we're going to do is we're going to transmit using a different view, and you're going to be able to see slides that are coming up. So that's just the way it's going to be today. And maybe he'll allow us to share this PowerPoint with you via email later as well. Okay, you're good to go.
As I mentioned, the Depression hit, attendance was down and income was way down. None of the teams folded. They all made it through, but several had to sell off their big players in order just to stay afloat. Connie Mack, managed for 50 years. He had 2 little groups of winners, an earlier group, and then he had to sell them off because he didn't have any money. And it took him 15 years to get another group back. He won in 1929, 30, and 31. And then he had to sell off his stars, and he never made it again. If you recall, the Athletics in those days, they were, when we were all big baseball fans, they were never very tough as a group. Clark Griffith owned the Senators, and he had the same kind of a financial problem. And he sold his shortstop, Joe Cronin. He wanted another shortstop and $250,000, and he got it. And the sad thing is, Joe Cronin was his son-in-law, and he had to let him go. The Yankees were tough during that period. They won 6 championships, 5 championships. And the Cardinals were great in the 30s and 40s. Dizzy Dean was going strong then. You remember his brother? They said they'd win 50, but they only won 49. Chuck Klein and Hack Wilson both became, they were power hitters, but they pushed it really because of Babe Ruth. They just followed that pattern. Ruth had a great influence on a whole bunch of hitters. And at the end of that decade, DiMaggio came in, Bob Feller came in, as did Ted Williams. The 40s were really kind of a spectacular time. You recall DiMaggio had his 56-game hitting streak going. When he hit game 38, it was the 8th inning and he had not had a hit yet. He was the 4th batter up. The first 2 guys, 1 got on and 1 is out. Tommy Henrich is the batter. And he started to panic, and he went to see his manager, Joe McCarthy, and he said, "Will you give me permission to bunt?" He did not want to bat and hit into a double play and end the streak. And McCarthy said he could, so DiMaggio then got up with 2 outs, and he hit a double to keep the streak going. The other big thing that went during that year, Ted Williams, he had his great hitting year. He went to the last game of the season hitting .399.6. That, of course, would officially round to 400, and many, his teammates, friends, fans, suggested he sit the day out. And he never even thought about it. And it was a doubleheader that final day, and he went 6 for 8 and ended up with 406. Stan Musial, you remember, one of the best at that time. And the Boston Braves had Warren Spahn and Johnny Sain. Sain was the big winner there. But they had that chant, Spahn, Sain, and 2 days of rain. But unfortunately, it was a dry summer, so it didn't work out. Ralph Kiner became a significant power hitter. He really blossomed after the Tigers traded Hane Greenberg to Pittsburgh. He kind of tutored Kiner, and Kiner was hitting a home run every 14 at-bats, and I think that is second to Babe Ruth. I didn't remember that he was that frequent, but that's the case. Williams and Feller and probably 350 other major leaguers went to the service in the 40s. Williams went for 2 stints for, I think, almost five years. Feller was for 4. Feller especially demanded almost that he wanted to see frontline duty. I mean, he wanted to see certain, he didn't want to be a celebrity going around with troops. And he was a gunnery captain. Yogi Berra, I learned, manned the machine gun on the landing vessels when they hit Normandy. Probably 3,000 minor leaguers, they think, were involved at one time or another. And 1947 was a Yankee-Dodger World Series. In my mind, there were 4 exceptional catches in World Series history since I've been a fan. And the first one was this one, 1947. Gianfrido was incredibly fast and a good defensive man. He was a rookie. They brought him up for the World Series for his speed, maybe defense. And the batter, he went in as a runner in the 8th or 9th. And then in the 9th inning, Joe DiMaggio hits a drive deep to left center field. And all the way to the bullpen. It was arguably the longest running catch in World Series history up to that time. And he made the catch. Unfortunately, that was his total experience. The next year in spring training, he didn't make the team. So that it was short-lived. This is Williams in the All-Star game. He won that game. DiMaggio is meeting him there. It was a game-winning homer. There is Williams being sworn in. This is Hane Greenberg, you Tiger lovers. He's the one they shipped off. Greenberg went through a lot of misery because of his Jewish faith. He was really harassed, unbelievably bad. And this is Williams during the end of his streak when he got another home run. Jackie Robinson comes in, signs in 46, and gets to the majors in 47. That was an interesting time when it was clear that Ricky was going to be successful in bringing in to integrate the league. people started wondering who it was going to be. And there were many people who wanted to be that person. Satchel Paige was one. Satch was at that time such a prime pitcher. He would have been an absolute star at the major league level. It would have been kind of nice if he could have done that, I think. Monty Irvin was the one that people thought would be a good choice. I think we all understand, I think, that it helped a great deal that Jackie at UCLA went through a lot of misery and they thought he could handle it. So the pressure was on. And everybody was rooting for him. All the black players, even though they wished they were there, they wanted him to be successful. And he was going to go in as shortstop. And several black players felt that that really wasn't his strength. And if he failed, then he's going to set back the integration plan for who knows how many years. And so Monty Irvin was one who counseled him. He could play the range on second, but he was not adept at going into the hole. They felt that he just would not be able to hold up in deep short. And so it was a good move, I think, to bring him out of there. Coming into the 50s, one of my favorite players was Robin Roberts because he was such a nice guy and he was so good and he played with a team that wasn't winning much, and that was kind of sad. Richie Ashburn, the center fielder for the Phillies, very fast, good hitter. The whiz kids of 1950 when they won the pennant. And DiMaggio and Mantle were at that time. Sal Magley of the Giants. I'm a Dodger fan, so he wasn't my favorite. And Willie Mays, of course, and his catch, that was the second of the 4 great catches. It's kind of narrow, but the thing that I found remarkable is that when he ran to deep center, he wasn't looking over his shoulder in either direction. He was running with his head going straight, looking up at his glove held high. Just quite remarkable. I never get tired of watching that. There's Ashburn of the Phillies, Willie Mays. Cleveland, you remember Mike Garcia, Bob Lemon, and Early Wynn. They were just a tremendous trio. They had great depth then, and they also had relief. These are Cardinals in the 40s. That's Joe Garagiola on the left, Stan Musial on the right. Enos Slaughter next to him. I don't know what you're seeing on your screen, people. I really apologize if you're not seeing large pictures. I know I'm not. Then in 1955, Sandy Amaros of the Dodgers made the third of those catches. He was, I think Andy Pafko was playing left field, and late in the game, they put Amaros in for defensive purposes. Yogi Berra's a batter, and he hit a drive down left field line, and Amaros made a tremendous long run, and he got the ball just I think short of the foul line. And what's interesting here is that Amaros was left-handed, so when he got to the end, he could reach out and with his glove in the right hand and barely make the catch. A right-hander would have had to backhand at that point. And of course, Robinson did all the exciting things. Robinson kept stealing on the bases and keeping pitchers sort of upset. He did that so well, but that's what all the black players did through the dead ball era and even with the traveling teams. They were active all the time, using speed. Hank Aaron, of course, came in then and became so special. Many baseball people think that Bill Mazeroski of Pittsburgh was the best defensive player at whatever position he was at. He was at second base most of the time, but they just said such great things. And of course, the reason we remember him so much is in 1960, he hit that home run in the walk-off home run in the last inning, the last of the 10th, I think, for Pittsburgh. And Nellie Fox was a fellow who rarely struck out. One year not 1 year, but for a few years, he led the league in fewest strikeouts. When you look at, we're going to talk about this later, but the increasing number of strikeouts is just quite amazing in baseball today. It's amazing how I guess we can tolerate, how the teams can tolerate that many strikeouts. But as the baseball, as the stat people will tell you, that the home runs are making up to, so it makes it work. And Monty Irwin and Willie Mays were in there as well. This is Jackie Robinson stealing home. That was against Berra. When he stole against Berra, Berra did not get down in front of the plate very much. He left the edge of it open for him. It was really close. I'm not sure. We didn't get to see replays at that time. Satchel Paige, I have him up here in the 50s because he pitched 3 innings for the A's. My understanding is that he needed to get 3 innings for the baseball retirement. So he was 50 some years old. He pitched 3. He gave up 1 hit, but no runs. And Mantle and Maris, that was a fun time. They got along remarkably well for the competition they were in. I thought that was pretty nice. Maris is from Fargo. When I was going to school, he was playing Legion ball, and he was just such a great player. And there was a minor league team there at that time, and he would leave his junior Legion team and go and hit with the minor leaguers. You could see it then. And here are some more Dodgers. Robinson on the left, down Newcombe and Roy Campanella. After Robinson came in between then and I think about 1952, there were 150 blacks that had joined the league, and it was I think it was kind of a paradox. Robinson broke the barrier for blacks, which is a wonderful thing, and in so doing, he killed the black leagues, and so it was a mixed blessing. The black players who comment on that all said they were very happy. I'm sure there are exceptions, but they were so happy to get the gate down so that black ball players could have a chance to go play in the majors. But the fans would rather go and watch the people in the majors, and rather than support the Negro Leagues that were ongoing. You know, they would draw 40, 50,000 for special games. So they were really doing quite well. And the older people found out that they're never going to make it to the majors. And that really caused some, I think, mental problems for one. Josh Gibson was one that he so badly wanted to make it to the major leagues, and he knew he was one of the best players, but it just didn't work out. In the 60s, strong pitching, the hitting started pretty well, but then it slipped. The 60 series was outstanding. I mentioned that. Mazeroski's walk-off. Bob Gibson had an ERA of 1.12. Of course, Denny McLain won 31. And it was, and Koufax led ERA for five different years. Maury Wells broke Ty Cobb's record of 96 steals with 104. And here are the Mets. Not talking much at all about the expansion, but from here on, when the leagues broke open and we added so many teams, there was a great deal of concern about the quality of play, whether we could support that number. And a number of people think that the quality dipped quite a bit. I don't know that I feel strongly about that, but that's and this young fellow played for the Mets, Nolan Ryan. I think he in the '69 series, I think he got the 2/3 of an inning or something like that. And here's Ron Saboda, right field. You'll remember they were playing the Orioles in '69, and Brooks Robinson, the third baseman, hit this line shot to right center, and Saboda, who was known for a bat and didn't have good credentials for defense, made a diving catch to kill a rally. It was very important, and for me, that's the third of those 4 big catches. I think I give you 4. This is Koufax. When Koufax broke in with the Dodgers, he was pretty wild, and he had some mediocre years. And once he got his curveball going well and some control, he was just outstanding. And there are those who pick him as maybe one of the best pitchers ever. Some of them have him as number 1. I have a close-up of Satchel Paige holding a baseball, and the length of his fingers they're just really long. I mean, he's either got to be a piano player or a pitcher. And the same is true with Koufax. He has really long fingers. And I think that really can help you wrap your fingers around for the curveball when you want to snap it down. And you can see Campanella is gone here. He had the bad accident. Whitey Ford, always strong in the series. Juan Marichal. Look at that ball. It looks like it's about 6 inches from the ground. When Satchel Paige was in reform school, but by the way, Babe Ruth and Satchel Paige both got their start in a reform school setting, both learned baseball there. And the fellow that worked with Satchel got him to get his leg up. He wants him to have a high kick, and he kept it. Tom Seaver, another great one. Denny McLain, throwing in for you Tiger fans. Norm Cash on first. I don't remember, in '68, I think Cash hit something like, I don't know, 360 maybe. He had a tremendous year leading the Tigers. But then in 1 or 2 years, he had the biggest drop. He dropped 100 points. And I don't know if he ever really recovered it. And you also remember as Tiger fans that that's the year that the series is when they put Mickey Stanley at shortstop from center field. Quite a gamble. And obviously it worked very well. There were a limited number of black players prior to 1900 playing around mostly on the East Coast. They were playing with white ball clubs, and not a huge number, but they were certainly visible. And then the National Association of Professional Baseball Players apparently made an official statement to ban them after maybe the turn of the century. I know in '88, Newark was going to play the Chicago White Sox, the White Stockings. Cap Anson was one of the all-time great ball players. He played and managed for many, many, many years. And he was managing Chicago at that time. This was in I think 1888. And the pitcher scheduled for Newark was a guy named George Stovey, who was a tremendous pitcher, and he was black. And Anson let it be known that if there's a black player, he's not going to take the field. So Stovey that morning stayed home, that he was sick, and called the manager and said he couldn't play. So the game went on. He did not want to cause the game not to be played, and so he did that. Now, that incident, I understand from reading, played a role also in that decision coming, that after entering the 20th century, that they weren't going to allow black players. For a long time, there was nothing written on that, and people just, it was a word of mouth kind of thing. Two of the two great organizers of black baseball, Rube Foster and Gus Greenlee. Foster was a large man, very nice. He was a very good pitcher, and he organized teams. He treated his players better than any other black team. They traveled well, they ate well, everybody loved him. Gus Greenlee, he's the one who started the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Foster had the Chicago American Giants, two great black teams. But Greenlee did not have the respect that Foster did. Greenlee, it's pretty clear now, funded his baseball teams by running numbers games. He was using it to wash money, to clear it up. But he provided a decent living for the black players on his team. The Crawfords were kind of like a big family. They were the best team in black baseball almost assuredly in the 30s. The Homestead Grays, I think, maybe got better in the 40s. This is Moses Fleetwood Walker. He was a student at Oberlin College, big guy, and he started playing baseball. He played before 1900 on the East Coast, and then he went to Michigan and played there for a while. I think they had a season of 3 games once while he was there. And one of the teams he played on in the late 1800s became a major league team. The leagues at that time leagues would start and they would shut down. They'd join other groups. And so some of these minor league teams spent some time as major. So he holds a record of perhaps being the first major league black player. This is Gus Greenlee from Pittsburgh. he had a restaurant bar named the Crawfords. And Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey gets so much credit for his role in integrating baseball. And he had one other thing. He was really the father of the farm system, but he was widely criticized for the way he used it. He had arguably 800 players on 30 some teams, and most of these guys were never going to get to the Cardinals at that time. And it was like people thought he was taking advantage of them, and then he would sell them from time to time to other teams. It was like a business where the players were a commodity, and they stayed and played, hoping and thinking that they sometime make the Cardinals. So that was a little bit of a mixed love affair there. And then Kenny C. Mountain Landis, the commissioner of baseball, he has some sort of, I think, mixed evaluations. Most people believe that he was not working very hard for integration when Ricky was working on this program, and he left. He was out, and Happy Chandler replaced him. He was a governor of Kentucky, a very well-liked man. And when the major leagues finally voted, the final vote with the owners, it was 15-1. The lone yes vote was from Branch Rickey. Everybody else voted no, 15 of them. And Happy Chandler said, I don't know how I could justify telling these guys that they can't play. And so he just sort of grabbed the bull by the horn and sort of forced it on the owners. And it was a huge thing for the movement. There's Happy. The Negro Leagues had 7 major leagues, and several others started and folded. The Negro National League was the biggest, and that was started by Rube, and it folded, and then Gus Greenlee picked it up and started it again, and the others were just segments of it. And they lasted about through the 50s, some of them. Here are some of the Crawfords. Oscar Charleston Standing is the player manager, very strong, very big, power hitter. Josh Gibson's number 2, and then the second from the right is Cool Papa Bell. Arguably the fastest baseball player ever. My memory is that Mickey Mantle circled the bases in 13 something. I think he went to first and left-handed less than 4. Bell was timed circling the bases in 12 seconds flat, and the time to first is unbelievable. Some of the teams, just list some of the better ones in the 30s and going into the 40s. The Lincoln Giants, they came from Lincoln, Nebraska, but they ended up in New York, and they were a real powerhouse. Pittsburgh Crawfords, Kansas City Monarchs, the Homestead Grays in Pennsylvania, Chicago American Giants. There are so many teams with the name Giant, versions of it. Started with the Cuban Giants, and the Birmingham Black Bombers. This is a list of the Crawfords. I put this here so you can see some of those names. If you haven't followed that very much. You might recognize some. I mentioned, I think last time, that the Pittsburgh Crawfords, that book, I highly recommend it to anybody who would like to read about black baseball. It was an exciting time, and for all kinds of reasons. But Satchel was their big pitcher when he was there. Paige used to move. He would go someplace that they offer him more money, give him something special. But the reason people liked him so much is whenever a team was hurting, they needed money, he would go and pitch, and it would always be a show. He would always draw, and that was something greatly appreciated. Josh Gibson, the catcher, arguably the best hitter, maybe with Oscar Charleston, among the Crawfords and in black baseball. So he was a huge power hitter, but also for average. Oscar Charleston on first base, Dick Say on second, Judy Johnson on third. His name is William. I don't know why. Shortstop was Chester Williams, Jimmy Crutchfield in left, Cool Papa Bell in center, Sam Bankhead in right. Now, the Jim Bankus, who wrote the book on the Crawfords, decided that he was going to use the 27 Yankees as the best major league team ever. That's a debatable thing. Some Yankee teams near there that maybe were better. And he matched the Crawfords up with the 27 Yankees. And he's not saying the Crawfords would have won, but he left at some positions that where the Crawfords had the advantage and where the Yankees had the advantage. And you certainly can come away with the feeling that they were incredibly good. Satchel Paige. He would be very serious pitching his ball games, but when he had a chance to go out and barnstorm and people wanted to pay him to come and do things, he also would be a showman, and he would make more money if he would be part of the showman. For example, he would, one of his favorite things barnstorming was to tell the other team that he's going to strike out the first 9 batters and then pull the outfield. And he would do things like that, and he get huge crowds. He left the Crawfords in '36 and went to North Dakota to play with Bismarck. And Bismarck had a semi-pro team. And when I was still around there, I got to go see a third baseman named Ray Dandridge. And Dandridge is in the Hall of Fame as one of the black players. And he was so old, he could hit the ball, just line drives, but he wasn't running very fast. He had to have been in his 50s, I don't know. This is Judy Johnson, the third baseman. That guy named Kettleson. Josh Gibson there. Martin DeHingo. These names don't mean anything. Cool Papa Bell. I want to make a few comments here. When people talk about whether or not the Negro Leagues, the black teams, were good enough, so they should be considered for the Hall of Fame, and different arguments are made. One thing, it is hard to measure directly people that bat against different kind of pitching. I'm not concerned about that personally. I am so impressed with those players and the way they perform that they certainly play at a level with people that we have in the hall. The historian for baseball has he was able to locate 438 exhibition games where major leaguers play the Negro Leaguers, and out of the 438, the major leaguers won 129, and the black players 309. So now there's another question with that. And this was raised by one of the black players, and again, I think these guys deserve to be in, but they will. The argument is that the white players weren't really playing as hard as they might, that they were just trying to make a few bucks, while the black players had everything to prove and just played as hard as they could, and they won more. I don't have a total on that, so I better be careful, but they certainly won a lot. The Lincoln Giants that I mentioned earlier, they had a pitcher named Joe Williams, Smokey Joe Williams. He's arguably one of the fastest pitchers ever. He was around with Walter Johnson. Johnson thinks that Williams is one of the one or two fastest pitchers in baseball. Big guy, 6'5", and these people would play American League teams on exhibitions, sometimes barnstorming after the seasons. But I just mentioned a couple of these. In 1912, he shut out the Giants twice, 2-0, 6-0. And then the New York Highlanders, that's the precursor of the Yankees, beat them 6-0. And then in 13, lost to an all-star team, 1-0 with 13 strikeouts. Those are all-star major leaguers. And then beat the same team later with 14 strikeouts. He beat the Philadelphia Phillies 9-3, beating Grover Cleveland Alexander, a Hall of Famer, and then won 3-1 against Chief Bender. He was with the Athletics, also a Hall of Famer. Then next year, beat the Phillies again 10-4. Beat Rube Marquard, another Hall of Famer with the Giants. He did not, it was a 1-1 tie. In 15, he won 1 and lost 2. In 17, a 10-inning no-hitter, 20 strikeouts against the Giants, the National League champion, but he lost 1-0. Next year, he won 3 games. And then he thinks the best game he ever pitched was the next one was Cannonball Reading. He threw a no-hitter, won 1-0. Reading was 6'4" and threw incredibly hard. Smokey Joe Williams and Cannonball Ederle would arguably be 2 of the best pitchers on the staff that you could compare with just almost any team, anytime. Another way of barnstorming, different from barnstorming because they would just go and wait. They'd go to Cuba and they would join some Cuban players on one of their teams, and the major leaguers would routinely come down for long stints. In 1909, the Tigers came down for an 11-game series. I forgot the year, don't take that. 11-game series, and the American Cubans won 7. Another team would come in for another stint, and they would consistently win. One of the kind of an interesting thing that happened because of the barnstorming thing, Dominican Republic had a dictator named Trujillo back in those days, and he was a huge baseball fan. And he had a great team, a country team. And in the tournament, a town from the Dominican Republic beat his team. And he was pretty furious, and he got a hold of Satchel, to see if he would put together a team and bring it down. And he did. He got mostly guys from the Crawfords. Trujillo gave them $30,000 to stay together and get into this tournament. And the people who were setting it up, working for him, his people, were telling these baseball players, you can't lose. Don't even think of it. Don't lose. It would be really bad. And they didn't know what that meant. How could that be bad? But at any rate, they were down 2 runs in the 7th inning in this championship tournament game, and scored 3 to win, and then got out of town as fast as they could. What I would like to do, Kim, can you hear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to show some video clips here. We need to make a change just for a second, so if you'd be patient. You know, just the other day, it was Jackie Robinson Day. Kim Buckley told me that.
I don't know why it's not switching over. Of course, when we practiced this before class, it worked just fine, and now it's not switching over to the video. Hold on.
I think I can dig it out.
We should be able to go here and click on that. It's not sharing that. I'm not sure. I'll try again.
Well, may I just get out of here?
Yeah, try that.
I'll,
Okay, Alden, so I'm seeing on my screen, Kim Buckley, if you could confirm this for me, I'm seeing your knuckleball video.
you are?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm not.
Can you close out of, can you close? Well, we're stopped here. Okay, I want you to close. I see for some reason it's back here. Okay, so if you want to be on slide 1,
Yeah.
click there.
Can I move this over, you think?
Try it.
This, and I can't see it.
No, so I'm seeing the knuckleball Slides, Eldon.
Okay.
Yep,
Are we, o-
yep,
are we okay?
yep.
This is R.A. Dickey. He's an interesting fellow. He went through a near tragedy in the river where he thought he was going to drown, and as he was going down, he hit bottom and survived, and it took him a long time to recover from that. But I'm going to show just a few of his pitches to see if we can get some variety. You know, we know now that the laces, the stitching that holds the leather together is kind of rough, and that's really the thing that is causing the movement. Air, if the knuckleball doesn't move at all, it will not work. It has to be turning a little bit, and the stitches are exposed to air depending on the direction they're going and how much wind they get on them. And then you have a series of low pressures and high pressures from the air flowing over them, and the where there is high pressure, it will push against the ball and cause it to move, and it gets to be quite erratic. Some knuckleballers have their pitch go about the same every time. Like once in a while, you'll see one that always goes down. I'm gonna get another one in here. That ball does a late break to the left, right there. Just a little, not big, there, right there. The catchers use oversized mitts that don't have much padding so that you can catch the ball. You have a large space, large area. We'll try another one. That was nice. One of the most prominent baseball fans, physicists, says that it's impossible to hit the knuckleball on purpose. I'll try another one. Went out and then in. Look at that. if you people hang with me here, we'll do a couple more of these. Then I've got oh my. I have a couple of things on the other one that I'd like to show you about where you should hit the ball on a bat. Kim,
Yep.
can I go back to my old slides? I have a couple of videos there. Is it still hooked up to run?
Are you done with that one?
Yeah.
You gotta go back to stop share for that. We gotta move that over again. We're opening it.
Move this over. Just give me a second here. We'll show you what it's like if you hit the ball on the handle. I think this is going to be a pop-up. Is it the now if you I don't know if you can see, but the ball's spinning. He hits the bottom forward, so it's got backspin as it's going up. And when that ball comes down to the earth again, it's going to be curving towards the field, towards the pitcher's mound. And catchers who aren't familiar with that find that they can go over their heads. All right, here's this is Miguel Cabrera. The thing I find interesting here is the movement in the bat. How I'm sure all of you have swung a bat and hit on the end or the handle, and you get this vibration, which especially in cold weather can be painful. So this is going to show you, we're going to watch a ball hit different places along the bat. And some will break, some will vibrate. Watch that bat yet. That is up in the middle of the bat. That's way too close to the handle. The sweet spot here is about 4 inches from the end of the bat, and it might be, say, about 4 inches long or 5. Now, we'll go down and look at the next one. up near the handle is just really shaking. I don't know if you can see that. Vibrating. He's actually getting out closer to the sweet spot, but not there. See what this one does. It doesn't break, it just bends. Look at that. There's a node at the sweet spot, and these waves of vibration move up and down the bat. But at that sweet spot, there's none. It's just solid. Perfect. Right on the sweet spot. Now, this one should be on near the end, so he's on the outside of that mode, that node. You know, this is why Mariano Rivera is so effective with his cutter. He throws it to left-handers, and it's just going to go in a bit from the sweet spot, and that's where these guys are breaking their bats. And if you watch Mariano pitch, he breaks lots of bats, especially for left-handers. Just move it. Now, if anybody has any questions or comments about anything, let's talk about them. I want to talk about pitching and hitting next time, and have at least one video. I want to show you something from the World Series last year, Tampa and LA. Some interesting plays that we can look at closely.
I have a question.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned Norm Cash's big season in 61 where he hit 361.
Yeah.
He admitted that season that he had played with a hollowed out bat that he put cork in all the entire season. Do you think that I've seen different things about whether people think cork would actually even help or not, but what do you think about that?
I'll tell you, I personally wouldn't be able to give you a good answer, but you remember when a few years ago the president, the baseball commissioner was the president of Yale, Giamatti or something like that. Remember that?
Bart Giamatti.
Yeah. All right. So he had a friend in the physics department at Yale who was a huge baseball fan. So the commissioner says to him, "Can you write something about the physics of baseball so I can understand it?" And he did. And after he did that, the commissioner said, "Boy, this is good. You ought to write it for the public." So he wrote this book on the physics of baseball. And I have the third edition. I don't know. I think that's it. I'm sure he's dead now. He was older at that time. But he said that it would make no difference.
Okay. Yeah, I saw something where somebody wrote that they thought it was a placebo effect for Norm Cash. He believed he had this magic bat or something and it helped him with his batting average. So who knows?
Yes.
But were there any other players that you mentioned who might have used something in their bats or had special bats?
A lot of players did things thinking it was good. Some people put little nails in them one guy put phonograph needles in, trying to make it hard. I don't know. But most of the things he thinks are kind of crazy.
Yeah, thanks.
And along that line, physicists now have worked out the fact that you can hit with more power with a somewhat lighter bat because you can swing it with more velocity, and it's a combination. You can have a heavy bat, and if you can swing it hard enough, it would go farther, or the lighter bat that you can swing harder and control it better. And they all wonder, Ruth was using a 40-ounce bat in his prime, and people today have bats like 34 ounces. They wonder what he would have done had he tried that method. And of course, who knows?
I have a question. Why do professional baseball teams use wood bats, but college teams use metal bats?
I think the big reason is that a metal bat can hit, I think there's recoil, and it can be dangerous. The ball can come off so hard. And then the other thing is money. Aluminum bats last for so much longer. But I think there's a danger of having the ball come off too hard. Concern about that.
At the
Okay,
college
thank you.
level, aluminum bats have been deadened since
Say it
they
again.
were first introduced. The teams it was almost like T-ball.
Huh?
Their scores would be 12-8 in a college game. And since they deadened the bat, the long ball has become far less prevalent in college ball. And
Huh.
it's back to normal scores, more like 3-2, 4-5, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
John, do you know what they did to deaden that aluminum bat? Have you any idea?
I don't know what they did to them. I have a couple of stories to share with you. I knew both Robin Roberts and Johnny Sane,
Ah,
both very humble men, by the way. Johnny Sane coached me in fantasy camp. In fact, I met him wearing this jersey. And one of the things he was most proud of that he told me over dinner was that he was one of the first, if not the first, major leaguer to enlist after Pearl Harbor. He was very proud of that. And Robin Roberts, I have two stories about him. I took my son, who was 8 years old at the time. He's same as my name, same as my grandfather's name. Well, Robin played baseball in college for my grandfather at Michigan State. And he was on campus at a baseball card show signing autographs. And he was up on the risers of the big table, and people would get up and walk across and talk to him and get an autograph and make a payment, which would be donated to the university. And there was a lull in the action. And I took my 8-year-old, I said, just go up there to that man, stick your hand out and introduce yourself. So my 8-year-old son, Johnny, walked up there and did exactly that. Robin Roberts' eyes got as big as pie plates. He dropped everything and made my son come around the table and sit with him for a half an hour while he signed autographs for other people, and then would tell my son stories about his great grandfather.
You might be able to correct me here. In working with pitchers, trying to get them to stride, to really push off the mound and stride out, and try to land on more flat foot than the heel. Used Roberts as an example because he supposedly reached out so far in his delivery that he would kind of rub his pants, and after every pitch, he reached down and kind of blouse his right knee.
He did. As a matter of fact, if you want to see that pitch recreated, watch Tom Seaver. Exact same motion. His follow through was so far out from the rubber that his left knee, by the end of the game, was dirty.
Yeah.
He'd rub it against the ground. That's where the push came from. My other story about Roberts is just to show his humility. Both he and Johnny were very humble. I was walking off an alumni event at the baseball field and just chatting with Robbie. Everybody called him Robbie. And I said, you know, you're the greatest pitcher to ever play on this field. And Robin said, being the humble man he was, said, oh no, there were a lot of good pitchers here, a lot of them. And I looked at him and I said, you know, Robbie, that's true, but only one of them is in the Hall of Fame, and that would be you. And he just smiled at me. That's all he would do. He would not want to draw attention to himself ever. He was just that kind of guy.
That's cool.
Whoops. I have a couple questions or comments in the chat. Eldon, do you want those now?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is just from Louis saying that the United States Postal Service will issue a stamp to commemorate Yogi Berra on June 24. A first day ceremony is planned for Little Falls, New Jersey. It may not be a public event due to the pandemic. In fact, it may have canceled altogether or have a virtual component. Does anyone know why Little Falls was chosen as the site of the first day ceremony?
Of the what? The site of the what first?
Of the first day ceremony. For the, I'm assuming to commemorate Yogi Berra on
I don't know.
June 24 with a United States stamp. I'm not sure, but I do have a comment here from Jane that Yogi Berra Museum is in Little Falls, New Jersey. So
He
perhaps.
lived in
Probably
New
is.
Jersey until his death.
Okay. And then Louis is wondering if you have any recommendations on books describing the physics of baseball.
Yes, The Physics of Baseball.
Oh, that's the actual title?
Yeah.
Okay.
There. I'll bring information.
Okay. That's all I have in the chat right now. So if anybody else has anything, feel free to unmute.
You know, physicists especially are, if they're baseball fans, are many of them are really get into this in a big way. And also statisticians. There's a statistician at some university that teaches a college course, and all of his examples are from baseball. They analyze things just so unbelievably in depth. One of these guys was watching a Yankee relief pitcher whose name I can't think of now, and he threw a pitch that moved the wrong way, and he happened to be watching the game on TV and saw it, so that they got a tape. You know, every pitch is taped now, major league and minor league. The records are intact. You can get and look at anything, but basically, when the ball rotates, it's going to curve in the direction it's spinning, and he saw a ball that went the other way, and so he gave it to physics friends, and they couldn't resolve it, and they sent it to a guy in Australia who's a physicist who does this. And they finally are trying to come up with some kind of an explanation. It's a fluky thing about the surfaces that are getting hit by air at a certain time. It was strange. But I'm not that interested in that. Couldn't follow it, I'm sure.
The ball might have been doctored.
What?
The ball might have been doctored.
No, I don't think so. They talked to the catchers, two catchers had been working with this guy. They had similar experiences, and they hadn't. I don't know if it's a particularly effective pitch, or if it's. I don't know the purpose of it, but it's different. It wasn't behaving.
So Eldon, I have a short story which will lead to a question. Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up as a rabid baseball fan, Tigers fan. Like many people who of my age, I would fall asleep at night with my small RCA transistor radio still on after the game, announced by Ernie Harwell, and wake up in the morning and the batteries would be gone, right? It was, I remember clearly.
That's your question? You didn't.
No, I said it's going to be a short story.
Oh.
Anyway, so it was amazing to me that our son grew up decades later with absolutely no interest or knowledge about baseball. And in 2006, it was the summer between his high school graduation and the first year of college. I said, well, at the very least, we're going to go to a ball game. So we went down to Detroit in the summer and watched a ball game. And we bought good seats, 12 or 13 rows up, just off to the first base side of home plate, so you could see the ball and the catcher for right-handed hitters. And the Tigers were playing, I think it was the White Sox. And Pudge Rodriguez was the catcher. And the starting pitcher was a guy who had been around for a long time, and he was nearing the end of his career, had started out as a flamethrower, and was learning how to be a real crafty pitcher, sort of in the mode of Frank Tanana, but not really. And I can't recall his name sitting here. He pitched well for 4 or 5, 6 innings, and then the Tigers brought in a flamethrower, relief pitcher, kind of a setup pitcher, whose name I've also forgotten. He wasn't around long, but he could throw the ball fast and hard. And I remember watching that fastball hit Pudge Rodriguez's glove, and you could hear it. We were close enough, and Pudge's mitt would just back up a little bit. And I think Pudge was generally acknowledged to be a pretty good catcher, right?
Yeah.
You could hear it, you could see the reaction, and then you could watch. Of course, they were displaying the speed of his pitches up on the scoreboard, because they had the gun on there. And in a couple of tight spots, he started throwing a little over 100 miles an hour. And I don't know how accurate the speed guns were at that point.
Was that a Maya?
No. Yeah, well, it could have been. He ended up throwing a ball 103 miles an hour, and Pudge's glove, you could hear it so easily live, and the crowd just went wild. He was, just wild enough to back those hitters off, and it was a phenomenal thing. So my question is, today, what are the top speeds that are commonly achieved by pitchers?
I'll talk about that next time.
Oh, okay.
Right now, I have to accept it as written. Nolan Ryan, 108, maybe 1
Ooh.
by Doppler radar. And they think Feller threw 107. They didn't have guns in. Feller was timed. Are you aware of the time when he threw against a motorcycle?
No.
The motorcycle's going 86 miles an hour. He had a head start, and the ball beat him by or hit 60 feet 6 inches with 13 feet lead on people did calculations and they, I think they had it at 104. They're a little, you know, you can't, probably a little suspect with some of those things, but what's interesting right now is a lot of the fastball pitchers are throwing fewer fastballs. Where there's a trend right now to throw more breaking stuff than just speed, and pitchers are cutting back and not throwing their hardest all the time, with the exception of these guys. They hit 100. The shoot, what's the guy's name? Starts with H. I think it was the Cardinals. 22 years old. He's Chapman. Chapman has not thrown 100. I don't think this year. He's backed off a bit. He has the record of he threw 105.1. That was clocked. In fact, he struck out the San Diego, the real good hitter from San Diego, kind of a Tony Gwynn, right? Yeah, Tony. I think I have that right. I think he got 7 pitches, and the count are 7 pitches. 5 of them were over 100, and he struck out on the 105-1, and he said afterwards to somebody in the locker room, he said, "I didn't see it. I didn't see it until it was past me." And I mentioned to you earlier about my fear of all this elevation of speed. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but things I'm reading there also talk about getting close to the physiological limit. I'll dig up some of those numbers. I can't imagine playing the game where I feared for my life and couldn't see it. It would no longer be fun. When you people were growing up, did you have town teams in your area? Did you play on those?
American Legion ball.
Legion?
That was very big back in my era.
I saw in the paper a while ago that Holland's going to have inviting, I don't know how old, college kids or something for some kind of a town team program. I don't know anything about it. Another thing that, there's pretty sort of a shift in the way people think as we come through these old days where people throw 9 innings, and they throw 9 in the old days in the 20s and 30s. They might pitch every other day for a while. It's just sort of unbelievable to me. And the trend now is being careful about how many times a hitter sees your pitcher. And so the tendency is to maybe start pulling people after they've seen them maybe just once or twice. And recently, in recent years, people have tried, well, they'll put 3 relievers in the game. Start a reliever, let him go 3, and then let the other 2 guys. The biggest part of that is to keep the hitters from getting used to the pitcher. I don't know whether you like that or not.
Nolan Ryan doesn't like it.
Any other comments, stories?
Well, I'll share one last one with you. When I was a kid, my father took me to Tiger Stadium to see a game. My mom came along, my brother. Just before we left, my mom decided she's going to save money. Instead of sending me to a barber, she got one of those do-it-yourself haircut kits. And she gave me a haircut, which was so bad, it looked like moths attacked my head. So when they played the national anthem, I refused to take my head off. During the game, we were sitting right next to the dugout. And I had my popcorn to my right on the edge of the dugout, just sitting there so I could watch the game. And during the game, Al Kaline's hand came out of the dugout right into my popcorn and stole some and back down in.
That's
I didn't
cool.
know whether to eat the rest of the popcorn or get it bronzed.
You know, I didn't mention it, but I trying to evaluate these black players. When Dizzy Dean's All-Stars played Satchel's, one of Satchel's teams, they were all good friends, and they spent time chatting a lot. But I think Satchel won 11-0. I think Dizzy said that Paige was the best pitcher he'd ever seen. Ty Cobb says, "Who's the best hitter you know in baseball?" He said, "Shoeless Joe Jackson." Babe Ruth was asked, "Who's the greatest player you know?" And he said, "You mean in the major leagues?" And the person said, "No, just the greatest baseball player out there." He said, "That would have to be John Henry Lloyd, a black shortstop." The major league players knew how good these people really were. And they never had a chance. So sad.
Yeah. Al Kaline said the best ball player he ever saw was Willie Mays, most complete player.
Yeah. A lot of people do. A lot of people really. Well,
Whoops, sorry, I was muted. It's 11:04, everybody. So why don't we give Eldon a virtual applause here? Thank you so much. Kim Buckley, do you want to say anything else about what's coming up next week or anything?
I think I'm good. Eldon has done a great job so far, and I'm looking forward to more good stuff.
well,
The third session.
I'm not going to talk about teams next time. I'm interested in fundamental baseball, just hitting and pitching and things like that. I'm always amazed, and I wrote in the blurb that went into the announcement for this course, this program, that I hope to convince you how difficult it is to hit a baseball. And rather than cuss out one of your favorite players for striking out or popping up, it's amazing that sometimes that they can get the bat on the ball. It's at least I'm just blown away by the times, how much time you have to make decisions. You have to have a little time for the nerves to conduct impulses from your eyes to your brain and to muscles, and when you get everything together, you say that there isn't enough time. I can't do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Good job.